Hello, and thank you for being here today. The change management pitch you're going to see today is being presented by Jeff Pearson
and Silvia Casabianca.
This is our agenda. We'll go through the definition of change management, introduce the company, explain the changes it will go through, and the plans the change company uses to manage the process, to detect and address resistance, and the change model we are planning to use. We will then end by presenting our communication plan.
We're going to define change management according to Sartori as the activities, functions, and tools through which an organization deals with the introduction of something new that is relevant for both its survival and its growth. Bruskin, 2020, discusses three types of change: anticipated, emergent, and opportunity-based. He sees anticipated changes and emergent changes as interlinked. In this case, the emergent change is the declaration of a pandemic, which created an opportunity for the company to change many aspects of the organization, including the way services are delivered, the introduction of new services, and even the way stakeholders communicate. As said, it is the pandemic that prompts the organizational change, and he points how the word crisis in Chinese is built with two ideograms, one meaning danger and the other opportunity. In that sense, we confront the danger posed by the pandemic by accelerating change, which becomes an opportunity to continue seeking excellence and servicing clients by adopting digital ways of delivering new services and education. This is our company. It's a family-owned private business incorporated in Florida as an LLC, and we are calling this company Awareness for Wellness. It offers different kinds of services, including mental health counseling, hypnotherapy, and education, continuing education classes, nutrition, stress management, yoga, meditation and mindfulness, and parenting programs. As you see, these have been so far in-house, in-person services. The vision looking forward for this company is to provide real-time personalized health services and solutions for individuals to cultivate self-awareness, empathy, and wellness, and improve the quality of relationships. Now, our mission is to build healthier communities by educating and supporting individuals' healing processes at the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions.
So now we'll get into the business case for change. The description of the project, as you've heard, is to shift the service delivery model for our services from in-person to digital. The rationale for implementing the change project at this time is that the pandemic has disrupted our traditional way of delivering services. And the urgency is highlighted by Zaki's quote regarding quick adaptation. We also need to support our team members in learning new skills that benefit them and the organization. Now we'll talk a little bit about the change management committee that will take on this project and their roles. The committee consists of 5 individuals led by a contracted change agent to develop intervention, prioritize phases of implementation, and build and maintain the communication plan. Change agents are external experts in their field, and their job is to engage with the user system and prospective adopters to introduce and encourage adoption of this innovation at Tall and Horde. And according to the consulting firm ProSci, it's important that all participants fulfill their roles to make this change possible. All right, the essential actions of the committee. The actions the committee will take include both broad and narrow steps. Broadly, the committee will prepare everyone in the organization for the change, ensure everyone shares a common vision, and that it is personalized for each team member. More narrowly, the committee will develop a series of interventions and create space for resistance to the project to be addressed. This is the change model we're using to undertake this project. The foundational change model we're applying is Kurt Lewin's three-step model. Lewin's model argues there are three distinct phases of change within organizations. The first stage is unfreezing. This is a period of destabilization. In our case, this destabilization stems from disruption caused by the pandemic. Our team members are prohibited by public health guidelines to continue performing their roles in the status quo way. This is a period of particular vulnerability for our team members that needs to be kept top of mind. The second stage is the implementation of the change. For us, this is the period of transition from in-person to digital and includes user adoption of the new technology and methodology. The third stage is freezing, which is the stabilization period once the change is implemented. However, Elrod and Tippett all argue that the stasis inferred by Lewin's model is not good enough alone to capture the fluid nature of change in organizations. Elrod and Tippett specifically suggested a paired model using Lewin and Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief model. The combination of the two models builds on a less linear assumption of how organizations work and incorporates the emotional states of individuals within the organization as they process change. This is a more humanistic view that addresses people, not just as components of a system, but as human beings who will respond uniquely to the change project. Depending on where they are in the model and how fast they move from one stage to the next, some will become early adopters and some will become resistors.
In dealing with resistance is one of the most important things that the change management people need to do. According to Richet, resistance to change is associated with the level of uncertainty stakeholders experience, and that's why it is important that the change management agents address that uncertainty by communicating promptly and clearly about what the change entails. Rosenbaum and colleagues discussed that understanding resistance to change from the point of view of individual emotions has influenced the management of negative resistance. There's a tendency now to address resistance by engaging all the stakeholders with the change. The sponsored interventions to address resistance to change will vary according to the stages, as described by Lewin and Kubler-Ross. During the initial stage, interventions would include supporting the team members, training them, and communicating through emails, a newsletter, a training workshop, and it is expected that increased involvement will reduce that resistance. This would be a visual of how we will explore and address the resistance to change. As you see in the first column, we're looking at a combination of Lewin and Kubler-Ross models, where stages 1 and 2, denial and anger in the Kubler-Ross model, correspond to the unfreezing aspect that Lewin talked about. The bargaining and depression stages of Kubler-Ross model correspond to the moving or change part of the Lewin's model. And finally, the refreezing in Lewin's model correspond to the stage of acceptance that we see in the Kubler-Ross's model. We have column that explains the symptoms that people will manifest in each one of these stages, and also the sponsor interventions that we plan to implement, such as the communication through different media and training people, answering questions, and of course offering support and encouraging autonomy.
All right, so now we'll move into the communication plan for our team members. This will be a two-pronged approach using both informal and formal networks. Hall and Horde provide techniques to map social networks, assess stages of concern, and leverage individuals within the organization. These techniques taken together will give the change facilitators an informal communication plan that diffuses information bidirectionally. The first technique is to map a sociogram, which will provide insight into the pace of information sharing based on the number of connections individuals have. As you see here, counselors are the largest and most interconnected group, so we would expect information about the project to travel quickly within that group. Conversely, the accountant has fewer connections and may be the last to learn about the change. The second technique is to assess what stage of concern our team members are at. It's important to know, especially with the urgent nature of this change project, if team members show little concern about the project. These are likely resistors. The way we will assess is to conduct informal, one-legged interviews. These are very brief meetings with individuals where we will ask open-ended questions about how they're feeling about the project. We will do more listening than talking during these interviews. Finally, we will focus energy in the beginning to address the concerns of early adopters who are widely respected individuals within the organization that others turn to for validation or opposition to their own points of view. Now, successful formal communication plans utilize different types of channels and messages. Like Hoagland suggests a few that range from written to verbal, and Van Hove recommends using a tabled format for the formal communication plan that captures these various communication channels in a structure that is easy to see and interpret, as you will see on the next slide.
The communication plan seeks to first of all give people a voice, opening the lines of communication and encouraging all members of the team to express their feelings, their thoughts, and their ideas, appreciating the diverse perspectives, eases the transition from one to the next stage of change. Both process and content of the communication are important, you can see in this table. Our plan will use feedback mechanisms to check on resistors and adapters and evaluate how effective the communication channels will and delivery of content have been. Ashby and Belavia, 2020, say that without a clear, shared understanding of the broader landscape and the awareness of potential barriers, a plan will not succeed. So we are going to address that and making sure that our communication is clear. The communication plan, as Van Hove recommends, uses a table format for the formal communication plan to capture these various communication channels in a structure that is easy to see and interpret. So the communication plan will be shared with all the stakeholders, and it includes very clearly objectives, have a schedule, define what the audience for each objective is, and what are the channels through which this is going to be communicated.
So in conclusion, we've walked you through who the change management committee members are for this project, the setting, obviously, and the business case for the change. And we actually expect the company to succeed in the implementation of this change, despite how large the change looks. Looking forward, we will be using this technology that we're going to implement through this project to attract new clients, offer new services, expand our reach in the community, and really leverage the skills and introduce new skill sets to our team members to help them succeed and benefit them throughout their careers. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation.
Thank you much. And here are references and also the other bibliography that we consulted